At the carnival, I got separated from my friends and ended up in a strange part of the fairground. It was supposed to be a fun night out, but the crowd was huge, and we lost each other near the bumper cars. I wandered around trying to find them, but instead, I found myself in a quieter, unfamiliar area. The rides here were older, and the lights were dimmer. It felt like a part of the carnival that time forgot. I decided to keep walking, thinking maybe I'd find my friends or at least a way back to the main area. As I moved further in, the noise from the main fairground faded, replaced by an eerie silence. I stumbled upon a section filled with old mobile homes. It didn't look like part of the carnival at all. Curious, I approached one of the trailers. The door was slightly open, and a faint light was coming from inside. I knocked, but there was no answer. Pushing the door open, I stepped inside. The interior was cluttered and smelled of mildew. The furniture was old, and there were newspapers and empty cans scattered everywhere. I called out, but no one responded. That's when I noticed something odd. The door had closed behind me, and I couldn't get it open again. I tried the windows, but they were all stuck shut. Panic set in. I pulled out my phone to call my friends, but there was no signal. I felt trapped, like I had walked into a trap. I searched the trailer for anything that might help me get out. As I moved through the narrow hallway, I found a small room at the back. It was filled with old carnival posters and dusty boxes. I heard a noise outside, like footsteps on gravel. I rushed to the window and saw shadows moving between the trailers. My heart raced. Who was out there? Were they the ones who locked me in? I shouted for help, but the shadows disappeared and the silence returned. I kept trying the door, hoping it would somehow open. Hours passed, or at least it felt that way. The air inside the trailer was stifling, and I was growing desperate. I searched through the boxes, looking for anything useful. In one of them, I found an old, rusty crowbar. With renewed hope, I used it to pry open a window. It took all my strength, but eventually, the window gave way. I squeezed through and dropped to the ground outside. I didn't wait to see if anyone was around, I just ran. The trailers formed a maze, and it took a while before I found my way back to the main fairground. When I finally reunited with my friends, they were relieved and confused. I told them about the strange part of the carnival and the trailer, but when we went back to look, it was gone. The area was now filled with more rides and food stalls, as if the trailers had never existed. The experience left me shaken. I couldn't explain what had happened or why. All I knew was that I had walked into something strange and barely made it out. From then on, I stayed close to my friends at the carnival, not wanting to risk getting lost again in that mysterious, unsettling part of the fairground. I was at the carnival when I noticed a clown following me around. It was a typical suburban carnival in our quiet neighborhood, filled with families, laughter, and the smell of cotton candy. I went there with a couple of friends to unwind and enjoy the evening. Everything was fine until I saw the clown. At first, I thought it was just part of the act, a friendly entertainer moving through the crowd. But every time I turned around, he was there, standing just a bit too close, staring with those painted eyes. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was nothing, just my imagination playing tricks on me. But the disturbances began when I got home. It started small. The next morning, I found my front gate open. I always close it before bed. Then my trash cans were knocked over, but none of the neighbors' cans were touched. I chalked it up to raccoons or maybe a prank by local kids. A few days later, I started finding odd items in my yard. A single red balloon tied to my fence. A small, worn-out clown doll placed on my porch. It was creepy, but I still didn't make the connection to the carnival clown until I saw the same balloon and doll at different spots around my neighborhood. I asked my neighbors, but no one had seen anything unusual. One night, I heard noises outside my window. It was late, and the neighborhood was dead quiet. I peeked through the curtains and saw the clown standing across the street, partially hidden by a tree. My heart raced. I shut the curtains and called the police, but by the time they arrived, the clown was gone. They took a report but couldn't do much with so little to go on. Over the next week, the disturbances escalated. I found footprints in my garden, more balloons, and that same creepy doll moved to different spots around my property. It was like the clown was toying with me, letting me know he was always there. My friends thought I was overreacting, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. One evening, I decided to take a different route home from work, hoping to clear my mind. That's when I saw it, an old, abandoned house at the end of my street. One I had never paid much attention to before. The windows were boarded up, and the yard was overgrown with weeds. I don't know what compelled me, but I walked up to the house and peered through a gap in the boards. Inside, the house was a mess, filled with old furniture and debris. But what caught my eye were the red balloons and clown paraphernalia scattered everywhere. It was like a shrine to clowns, and in the center of it all was a wall covered in photos. Photos of me at the carnival, in my yard, walking down the street. The clown had been watching me, documenting my every move. I called the police immediately. They arrived quickly, and after searching the house, they found evidence linking it to several unsolved crimes in the area. The abandoned house was a crime scene, used by a disturbed individual who had been terrorizing the neighborhood for years. The clown was never caught, but the discovery of the house put an end to the disturbances. Knowing that the source of my fear was real, and not just in my head, was both terrifying and a relief. The experience left a mark on me, making me more cautious and aware of my surroundings. I'll never forget that clown at the carnival and the creepy, abandoned house. It's a reminder that sometimes the most innocent-seeming events can have dark and unsettling consequences. At the carnival, the Ferris wheel stopped, leaving me stranded at the top. I had decided to take a solo ride to get a better view of the bustling fair below. The night was clear, and the carnival lights glowed brightly against the dark sky. Everything was perfect until the Ferris wheel jolted to a stop, and I found myself stuck high above the ground. I waited patiently, expecting it to start moving again, but minutes passed and nothing happened. I could see the carnival workers running around below, trying to fix whatever had gone wrong. To pass the time, I looked around, taking in the view of the forest beyond the fairgrounds. That's when I noticed something strange. On the edge of the forest, there was an old, worn-out sign partially hidden by the trees. Curiosity piqued. I squinted to read it. Trail closed. It seemed odd, as I hadn't heard about any trails being closed around here. Finally, the Ferris wheel started moving again, and I was brought back down to the ground. The ride operator apologized for the inconvenience, but my mind was already elsewhere. I decided to check out that trail the next day. The following morning, I packed a small bag and headed to the edge of the forest. The sign was even more dilapidated up close, but I could still make out the words. Ignoring the warning, I ventured onto the trail. The forest was dense with thick underbrush and towering trees that blocked out much of the sunlight. The deeper I went, the quieter it became, until all I could hear was the crunch of leaves underfoot. About an hour into my hike, I stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin. Its wooden walls were covered in moss, and the windows were shattered. As I approached, I noticed something unsettling. Messages were scrawled across the walls in what looked like red paint. "Leave now, turn back, and you're not alone" were among the warnings. My heart raced as I read them. Despite my better judgment, I stepped inside. The air was musty, and the floorboards creaked under my weight. More messages were written on the walls, and even on the broken mirrors they're watching and run before it's too late. I felt a chill run down my spine. I quickly decided it was time to leave. As I turned to go, something caught my eye, an old, faded newspaper clipping pinned to the wall. It was dated several years ago and detailed a series of mysterious disappearances in the area. The article mentioned that the empty lot near the carnival, now a cheerful fairground, was once a crime scene where several bodies had been found. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This trail, the abandoned cabin, the unsettling messages, it all tied back to those crimes. My curiosity had led me straight into the heart of a dark, forgotten piece of local history. I hurried back down the trail, my mind racing. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and every rustle in the bushes made me jump. When I finally reached my car, I drove straight to the police station and told them everything. The officers took my story seriously and promised to investigate the cabin. They later confirmed that the messages and the newspaper clipping were real. The trail had been closed for years because of the crimes, but over time, the warnings had been forgotten. The experience left me rattled. The cheerful carnival now seemed tainted by the dark history that lay just beyond its borders. I learned to heed warnings and trust my instincts, realizing that sometimes the past can reach out and remind us of its presence in the most unexpected ways.